Story number 3, The Longest Night. Chapter 1, It Started with a Spark. Kirsty reached for the lamp above her bedside table. It's so dark in here. I can't even find the switch on the lamp, she mumbled. She and Rachel had just woken up. It was the morning of their last full day on Snowbound Island. I'll open the curtains, Rachel offered. She got out of bed and felt her way to the window in the dark. She tugged open the curtains, but no light came in. That's weird, she said, staring out. I wonder what time it is. It feels late in the morning, but it looks like the middle of the night. It's 10 o'clock, Kirsty said, staring at her light-up watch. So why is it pitch black outside? At that moment, Rachel and Kirsty both realized what was happening. This is all because of Jack Frost, Rachel said. Yes, Kirsty added. We still have to find the magical candle, or the nights will just keep getting longer and longer, and we'll barely see the sun. In the 2 days they had been on Snowbound Island, the girls had encountered all kinds of magic. Most importantly, they had made a new magical friend. Michelle was the Winter Wonderland fairy, and she was in charge of making sure everyone could enjoy the snowy season. Rachel and Kirsty had already helped her locate 2 of her missing magical items. Now, they just needed to track down 1 more, but they might need a flashlight to do it. I know that the days are shorter and the nights are longer in the winter, Kirsty said. But why? I'm not sure, Rachel answered. She plopped down on her bed and pulled the blankets around her. But it's gotta have something to do with the sun, right? As soon as Rachel said the word sun, a tiny light appeared. It had a golden glow, but it wasn't much larger than a speck of dust. The light floated in midair between the 2 girls' bed. It seemed to grow brighter, and it made a humming sound. It must be some kind of fairy magic, Kirsty said. The little spark looped around Kirsty's head, and then it swooped past Rachel's. It seemed to skip its way to the door. Quick, put on your clothes, Rachel insisted. We need to follow it. The girls had never dressed so quickly. Don't forget extra layers, Kirsty advised. With no sun, it will be extra cold. When the girls opened the door, the spark flitted into the hallway. Even though it was daytime, the electric lights were still dim. Everything was quiet. It's like no one is awake, Rachel whispered. Everyone must still be sleeping because there isn't any sun. But it's our last full day here, Kirsty exclaimed. I want my parents to have lots of fun. They can't just sleep all day. There's a snow hike and the campfire to celebrate the longest night. The hum of the tiny light grew louder. Don't worry, Kirsty, Rachel assured her friend. We're both awake, and we're on the right track. The girls followed the glowing, humming spark all the way through the lodge's silent lobby, out the front door, and along a snowy path. Not until they were safely hidden behind a pine tree did this glowing spark come to a stop. In an instant, the spark grew even brighter and bigger, and it became Michelle, the Winter Wonderland fairy. She was still wearing her cozy winter coat and her darling hat with the tiny ears. Thanks for following me, girls, their new friend said. I'm sorry I couldn't appear as myself earlier. My power is very weak. Showing up as a spark takes less energy, so I can save it for real magic. That's important because I have a feeling we're going to need it. Chapter 2. Away we go. It's almost lunchtime and it's still dark out, Rachel said. It seems so weird. Kirsty and Rachel walked behind Michelle. The fairy flew with her wand high in the air so it would light their way. In some parts of the world, Michelle explained, there are only a couple of hours of sunlight in the winter. The places that are close to the poles have the shortest winter days. Why is that? Kirsty asked. Well, Michelle began. As Earth orbits the sun, it is tilted. One pole tilts toward the sun and the other pole away from the sun. The one that tilts toward the sun gets more of its energy, its light and heat, so it's summer there. It's winter in the one that is tilted it away. The fairy paused to catch her breath. Then, of course, 6 months later, the other pole is tilted toward the sun, Michelle pointed out. So they switch seasons. Both girls nodded their heads. But that's science, Michelle said. What's happening now is magic. We have to fix the magic so that science can do its job. Otherwise, everyone here will have winter and darkness forever. At least it isn't as cold as yesterday, Kirsty said, trying to look on the bright side. Yes, you were both amazing yesterday, and I have no doubt you'll track down my magical candle too. It will be easy to find. It's in the cutest snowflake lantern, and it's magic, so it is always lit. The girls nodded again, and the three set off. They took the path down to where they had seen the goblins the day before, but this time there were no goblins playing in the snow. Next, they went to the barn. When they peeked through the windows, they saw only the horses and the sheep and the chickens. Shouldn't the barn be busy with workers? They need to be getting ready for the big festival tonight. I think people are still sleeping, Michelle said. Winter is a fun time to stay inside and snuggle too. The fairy closed her eyes and smiled at the cozy thought. Except it's a big, important day, Kirsty insisted. If people don't wake up soon, they won't have any fun. Rachel knew what Kirsty was thinking. Kirsty was worried about her parents. She wanted them to enjoy their time on the island. After all, Kirsty's mom had won the trip. Mrs. Tate's amazing painting of a winter scene had taken first prize in a contest. I'll bet this is going to be the log for the big campfire tonight, Rachel said. She pointed to a large tree that the workers had cut in the forest. But they still need to trim it down and get it into the fire ring. There's a lot to do. This reminds me of one of King Oberon's favorite sayings, Michelle began. He always advises the young fairies. He tells us, you can only do what you can do. Rachel and Kirsty looked at each other. King Oberon was married to Queen Titania. They were the kind, wise rulers of Fairyland. Sometimes they spoke with grand words and fancy phrases that sounded like riddles, but both girls were certain they understood what Michelle had said. So you're reminding us that we shouldn't worry about what we can't do, Rachel said. But that we need to do what we can do, Kirsty finished. Exactly, Michelle said. And we need to find my beautiful candle in the snowflake lantern. Once we do that, everything will come into place. But it's so dark, Kirsty mumbled. It's hard to believe there is light anywhere on the island. Kirsty, Rachel exclaimed, you're brilliant! The candle is not on the island at all. I'll bet the goblins took it back to Fairyland. Chapter 3, A Frosty Fairyland. You're absolutely right, Michelle said from her perch on Rachel's shoulder. If it's dark here, it must also be dark in Fairyland. Jack Frost would want to keep the lantern close so he could have the light in the ice castle. Rachel and Kirsty thought this was good news, but Michelle did not look happy. Her wings drooped behind her, and she was nervously biting her lip. Michelle, what's wrong? Kirsty asked. The fairy sighed. My magic is getting weaker, she said. I don't have enough power to get you to Fairyland, and I'm worried. What if I can't beat Jack Frost and his goblins on my own? Don't worry, Michelle, Rachel said. You won't get rid of us that easily. We have magic powder from Queen Titania. We carry it in our lockets so we can travel to Fairyland anytime, Kirsty said. You won't have to face Jack Frost or the goblins alone. Even in the gloomy shadows, the girls could see Michelle's mood brighten. A smile spread across her face. That's wonderful, the fairy said. I'm ready whenever you are. The girls unzipped their winter coats. They dug under their warm scarves in search of their lockets. They had used the magic powder several times, but it always felt special. And a little scary. Soon, both Rachel and Kirsty had found and opened their lockets. On the count of 3, Rachel said. 1, 2, 3. The girls took a pinch of powder and sprinkled it over their heads. At once, the air filled with twinkling sparkles. Michelle watched as a brisk wind wrapped around the two friends. In only a moment, the girls began to shrink to Fairyland size. The wind grew stronger and lifted them into the sky. Then poof, they were gone. The 3 friends reappeared in Fairyland. Now, Rachel and Kirsty had shimmery wings on their backs. Something else was different too. In Fairyland, near the ice castle, there was light. Even though the skies were filled with a thick layer of gray clouds, there was a warm glow all around. Oh, it's light out! Michelle exclaimed. That must mean my magic candle and lantern are nearby. We've got to track them down, Rachel said. It shouldn't be hard. It looks like the light is coming from over there. Yes, it's brighter on the other side of the ice castle, Kirsty said. Let's go, Michelle directed. But be careful. We don't want them to know we're here. The 3 fairies flapped their wings and flew toward the light. As they approached the ice castle, Michelle brought her finger to her lips. She wanted to remind the girls to be quiet. Jack Frost had goblin spies everywhere. Rachel and Kirsty had been to the ice castle before. The goblins often stayed inside, and you could hear them squabbling. Or hear Jack Frost yelling. Today, something special was happening. Even from high above, it was clear that the goblins were not fighting. They were busy. They had set up workstations and were carrying supplies, wood, hammers, nails, and lights. They were building something. Look, Michelle said. They're headed into the forest. It looks like they're taking everything up that hill. Michelle and the girls followed the goblins into the woods. When they flew past, The local birds noticed them and chirped hello. Shh, Michelle whispered, hoping the birds would help keep their secret. As they neared the top of the hill, there was a clearing. Here, the air was full of the sounds of sawing and hammering. The hilltop was also bright with the most beautiful light. My candle and lantern, Michelle said, pointing to an extra tall pedestal with the lantern placed at the top. Inside the pretty lantern with snowflake cutouts was a thick candle. Its flame had a brilliant glow. The pedestal was on a stage that the goblins were building. How will we get to the candle without the goblins seeing? Rachel wondered. They're everywhere. Yes, but the pedestal is so tall and we're so fast, we can probably get at it before they even know we're here, Michelle said. Her eyes were full of hope, but Kirsty and Rachel exchanged a worried glance. They weren't so sure it would be that easy. Chapter 4: Snowballs and Snowbirds. The three fairies sat on a snowy tree branch. They were about to set off to claim the candle. Their plan was to sweep in and out in secret, so the goblins wouldn't even know they had taken the candle from the top of the pedestal. We need to hurry, Michelle advised. My magic is almost gone. I need the candle back as soon as possible. So let's go. But before they could take off, a small flock of sweet snowbirds perched next to them. The birds landed with a fierce beating of their wings, and then they chirped, high and fast. Shh, Michelle scolded. We don't want the goblins to know we're here. Without a pause, she grabbed Rachel and Kirsty by the hands. Come on, girls! The snowbirds chirped even louder when the fairies took off. Kirsty glanced back, and she was almost certain that the birds were shaking their heads with concern. Still, the fairies flew forward, aiming for the candle at the top of the pedestal. Michelle was in the lead. She sped like a dart toward her missing magic item. When she was almost in reach, she slammed to a stop in midair and bounced backward. Whack! The same happened to Rachel and Kirsty. Slam! Bam! What was that? Rachel wondered, shaking out her wings. Kirsty rubbed her sore head. Michelle reached forward and felt something. She placed her hands flat and slid them along an invisible wall. It's a spell, she said. It's a no-fairy force field. We can't get to the pedestal. Michelle's shoulders instantly slumped. What do we do now? She wondered. Then a giant snowball smacked into her side. Fairies! A goblin screeched from below. They're going to get the candle! Another yelled. Snowball fight! A third bellowed. Out. At once, snowballs came whizzing at the fairies. All they could do was dodge the sloppy balls of snow. But there were too many goblins and too many snowballs. Soon, the fairies were cold and soggy, their wings too wet to work. I can't keep flying, Kirsty yelled with concern. My wings are too cold. She could feel herself drifting down. The fairies are falling, a goblin called with excitement. I'm going to catch one. All three fairies tried to flap harder, but their wings only moved more slowly. This one is mine, another goblin called, pointing a crooked finger. Mine! I want to give it to Jack Frost! A long-eared goblin jumped up and swiped at Rachel's snow boot. In an instant, the small flock of snowbirds swooped in. 3 of the birds carefully flew under the fairies. Rachel, Kirsty, and Michelle gratefully accepted their rides, holding onto the birds' soft neck feathers. 3 other birds flew up to the top of the pedestal and took hold of the lantern's handle. They weren't fairies, so it couldn't be stopped by the magical force field. They lifted the lantern, the candle still burning bright, high in the sky. Hit the candle! Knock out the flame! One angry goblin demanded. No one should have the light! The goblins threw snowball after snowball, but none came close to the candle. The red-beaked bird carrying Michelle knew just what to do. It flitted up toward the lantern. Oh, thank you! Michelle cried. The fairy reached down. As soon as she touched the lantern, there was a brilliant burst of golden light, and the dark winter clouds cleared. Safe on the backs of the snowbirds, Kirsty and Rachel had an amazing view of Fairyland from above. The winter sun shimmered off the snow. Even Jack Frost's ice castle glistened. King Oberon and Queen Titania's palace shone like a crystal jewel. Thank you so much, sweet snowbirds, Michelle cheered. I should have known you were trying to tell us something. You knew there was an awful spell around the pedestal, didn't you? The birds all chirped in reply. Rachel, Kirsty, and I thank you from the bottom of our hearts. The snowbirds found a sturdy nest and set down the young fairies. Michelle was anxious to return the candle to a safe place. Thank you again, dear friends, she called as the flock flew off. And thank you, Kirsty and Rachel. It's time for me to get you back to Snowbound Island and all the fun you can share there. With a flash of her wand, the girls were far from Fairyland. Chapter 5. Snow Globe Spell. When Kirsty and Rachel arrived back on Snowbound Island, it was bright out. As usual, no time had passed while they were gone. It was near noon by the time they walked back to the lodge, and everyone was outside getting ready for the solstice celebration at night. I can't believe we slept in so late, one worker said to another. There's so much to do. Can we help? Rachel offered. No, but thank you, Debbie replied. You should enjoy this day. It may be the shortest of the year, but it looks like it also be the prettiest. Kirsty took a deep breath of the crisp air and felt the warmth of the golden sun on her face. The snow sparkled. This really is a winter wonderland, Rachel said, her eyes squinting with cheer. Let's go find my parents. I don't want them to miss another second, Kirsty said. She grabbed her friend's hand, and they began to run through the deep snow. They hadn't gone far when they heard their names. Kirsty! Rachel! They turned to see the Tates waving at them. They were standing near the lodge's gear rental shed. We picked out snowshoes, Mr. Tate called. The girls rushed over. They were greeted with big hugs and a long list of plans for the afternoon. I can't imagine leaving without going ice skating, Mrs. Tate said. And I'd love to go snow tubing too, Mr. Tate added. Then it sounds like there's something special tonight, Mrs. Tate said, squeezing her daughter's hand. Mom, thanks for bringing Rachel and me along on this trip, Kirsty said. It's been amazing. Well, it's not over yet, Mr. Tate insisted, closing the latch on his snowshoe. Let's get out of here. Let's get out there. Rachel and Kirsty enjoyed a long afternoon of wintry fun and adventure. By the time evening came, They were more than ready to sit down and relax in front of the lodge's outdoor fire. The big log the girls had seen earlier in the day blazed in rich shades of yellow, red, and orange. The Tates and Rachel huddled together on benches around the fire. Rachel smiled and looked at her best friend. When something flickered in the corner of her eye, just past a cluster of pine trees, she had to ask, "Did you see that?" "I did," Kirsty said. "Do you think it was a sign for us?" The girls left the fire and followed the flickering glow. "Psst, over here!" They weren't surprised to find that the voice belonged to Michelle, who held her wand above her head like a searchlight. "Hello, friends," she said. "I wanted to thank you for all of your help. Now humans and fairies can really enjoy the wonders of winter. Just look at everyone." Kirsty and Rachel glanced back toward the fire. Kirsty saw her parents joyfully sipping hot chocolate. Some of the other guests were singing songs together. Everyone looked happy and cozy. "We should thank you," Rachel said. "You've given us all kinds of fabulous winter memories." "That's what I'm here for," Michelle said. "Also, I wanted to give you these." She twirled her wand, and 2 rings magically appeared, floating in a milky cloud in midair. The rings both had tiny snow globes on them, with tiny silvery snowflakes inside. "Oh, they're lovely," Kirsty said. The girls each took a ring and put it on. They are good for one special snowfall as a gift from me," Michelle said. "Do you mean we can make it snow with these rings?" Rachel asked. "Yes, just twist off the top, shake it, and you'll have snow," Michelle explained. "But it's so beautiful. I don't ever want to empty the snow," Kirsty said. "After this weekend, I think I want to trust nature with all the weather and the seasons." "I agree," Rachel said. And I'll also trust our fairy friends." Michelle looked very serious all of a sudden. "Your trust means a lot," the fairy said. "Thank you for being such amazing friends to the fairies. I'll look forward to seeing you again." She blew glittery kisses toward the girls and disappeared in a flurry of snowflakes. Rachel and Kirsty pulled their mittens back on over their special snow globe rings. They linked arms and headed back to the fire where everyone was having a merry time. "It's the longest night of the year," Kirsty whispered. "Yes," Rachel replied, "and I'm glad I get to spend every bit of it with you." Now that they had helped Michelle find her magic candle and snowflake lantern, things would return to normal. The days would slowly get longer and the nights shorter. After a while, with more sunlight, the season would turn into spring. Then flowers would start to bud and the snow would finally melt. But that was months away. Rachel and Kirsty still had lots of wonderful winter days and cozy winter nights to share together before then.